I just saw somewhere in the comments somebody asking if you were on the ground in Myanmar. Somebody thought maybe you were possibly on the ground in Myanmar when that whole rebellion kicked off. Was that
So
is that true or no?
I've been to Burma slash Myanmar. I have not been there in like conflict zones or anything,
Hmm.
but what I did go to neighboring Bangladesh, and I was at a refugee camp there for about 3 weeks. And
Oh, right on, right on.
I was doing some back when I was trying to get freelance work as a basically as like a cinematographer, camera operator. That's what I
Was
was
that
doing before.
was that before or after the FGC 9?
That was before the FGC 9. That
Okay.
was before the FGC 9. That was right when the Tatmadaw, who are the military dictatorship in Myanmar, they were technically they hadn't done the coup yet. So they were an arm of the government of Burma, and they had massacred a ton of people, a ton of minorities, including this huge minority that's the Rohingya population in Burma. And there was over 1 million refugees that had flooded into Bangladesh that had crossed this, across this little, there's this little, I guess you wouldn't really call it a river, but there's a little bay there that they crossed. And so I was there filming this, essentially this effort that these influencers were trying to do to raise money and awareness about the issue in Burma. And then, yeah, I got to hear a lot of the really, really dark stories from the survivors of the regime that's currently being like they're rebelling against right now in Burma with FGC 9s. It's that regime
That's
that I
the video that you published on your FGC 9, the 3D printed guns in modern conflict.
Yes, that is the story that I was telling. Yeah, so I heard lots of stories about just the really, pretty dark, violent stories about, just ransacking villages, no regard for human life.
That was nightmare stuff, man.
Yeah, nightmare shit. Not stuff that it's really fun to talk about on the live stream.
But so you were there just as like a tagging along with like journalists or some sort of like NGO?
Yeah, it was in a kind of a journalism capacity, I would say. Yeah, there's a influencer by the name of Jerome Jarre, this French. He got big on Vine, and I got connected with him because I was I lived, actually, I know it's kind of wild, but before I got into the guns, I lived in New York City for 4 years. And so that's kind of where I started to get back into making music and started getting into filmmaking. And I grew up in Vermont and moved from Vermont to New York, and then kind of made a little career doing videography, cinematography stuff. And then as a result of that, I got connected with this influencer, Jerome Jarre, and we went to Bangladesh as part of this initiative they did to raise awareness with all these other, celebrities and stuff like that. And yeah, so that's how I was there with them, and I was documenting their efforts. And so that's how I got in contact with those survivors.
Gotcha. I mean, that is crazy stuff, man. It is cool that you actually, go out there and do something that's maybe a little more important than just like silly YouTube content, and I mean, that's crazy stuff.
I mean, this is before I was making stupid, silly videos on YouTube. It's unfortunately, I mean, yeah, there's been basically a civil war going on there for decades, small scale, but it's to the point where it's so big in terms of the resistance that, it's tough because they've got, the Tatmadaw has like China and India essentially, and a bunch of other countries kind of on their side. So it's tough, and they're modern, I guess you would call it military, but dude, guerrilla warfare. I mean, you're seeing the videos. The videos are pretty gnarly of just showing up, just doing drive-bys. It's like, I mean, you oppress people so much. There's bound to be a massive guerrilla force, in numbers. It's tough to fight against that.